stops us in our tracks. Bravely we prove in our striving, trudging together each day. Where there's a will, there's a way.
Hello and welcome to Raw Recovery, a Trudging Together podcast. My name is Dion, and you're listening to the 12-step series today, or the 12 Days of Recovery series, which I think is actually turning into 13 days, but it ought not be organized. So I'm doing a little bit of sharing here because it's also a live. So we'll go ahead and get that going. But hope everybody's having a good day. Just trying to think. Okay. I stayed up a little late last night so that I would sleep a little later. And then I woke up at 5:17. I woke up even earlier. So, but I am drowsy. I'm tired. And I'm sure I will take a nap at some point today because the Bronco game is on tonight. And I'm not going to be missing that. And we'll be in the 12 by 12. Yesterday we covered step 6. And we talked about a lot of different things with it. Mostly it was really that understanding that, we are moving towards a perfection that we might never reach. But we're going to give it about 30 more seconds here so I can let anybody join that would like to. So, So let's go ahead and pull out our 12 by 12s. And go to step 7. It'll be on page 70. So I'm going to do some introductions here, and we will get going. Welcome to the Daily Trudge and Raw Recovery Podcast, which is really the same darn thing. This is called Raw Recovery because, well, have you listened to some of the stories? It's raw, man. Raw. If you're here, please say hello, whether you're watching the live or the rewatch. Live or the rewatch. So let's go ahead and get started. Humility is going to be the key word in this one. It is also the principle behind this step. So let's keep that in mind. Now in step 4, we did a little bit of discovery about stock and trade. We got down to causes and conditions about what we're doing, and we became aware of our character defects. In step 5, we admitted these character defects and the things that we had done wrong to other people, not only to ourselves, but to God and another human being. In step 6, we made it. In step 6, of course, I'm not quite awake. We became entirely ready, right? And the principle behind step 6 is willingness. So in that case, willingness is really what we're saying is I'm now willing. I'm willing to let God take these. Now we're going to ask him. So humbly ask God to remove our shortcomings. Now in the big book, steps 6 and 7 are about 4 paragraphs long. Step 7 is covered. It's mostly just a prayer. So we're going to get into it a little bit more here. All right. Step 7, humbly ask him to remove our shortcomings. Since this step is so specifically concerns itself with humility, we should pause here to consider what humility is and what the practice of it can really mean to us. Indeed, the attainment of greater humility is the foundation principle of each of AA's 12 steps, for without some degree of humility, no alcoholic can stay sober at all. Nearly all AAs have found, too, that unless they develop much more of this precious quality than may be required just for sobriety, they still have much of a chance of becoming truly happy. Without it, they cannot live to much useful purpose, or in adversity be able to summon the faith that can meet in any emergency. Humility as a word as a word and as an ideal has a very bad time of it in our world. Not only is the idea misunderstood, the word itself is awfully intensely disliked. Oh, sorry, got a side cramp here. What the heck? All right. Many people haven't even a nodding acquaintance with humility as a way of life. Much of everyday talk we hear and a great deal of what we read highlights man's pride in his own achievements. With great intelligence, men of science have been forcing nature to disclose their secrets. The immense resources now being harnessed promise such a quantity of material blessings that many have come to believe that a man-made millennium lies just ahead. Poverty will disappear. And there will be such abundance that everybody can have all the security and personal satisfactions he desires. I'm going to kind of stop there because I haven't mentioned much. It's because I'm tired. Not much is coming to my brain. But the thing is when everybody gets everything, nobody gets anything. It will be consumed. Oh, there's a toilet paper storage. Watch what happens. People buy that in droves, and then they will turn around and try and sell it. All right. But here we need much more humility in our lives. You know, that we need to grow. We need to become better people each day, right? But without it, we're not going to be able to summon that faith that we need in an emergency that's happening right now. That's an emergency. It means it's happening right now. But you know, there's a lot of things. I mean, sure, it's great that we go out and help people, but the moment that you put it on Facebook and tell everybody about it, it's no good anymore. It's not any good anymore. So the theory seems to be that once everybody's primary instincts are satisfied, there won't be much left to quarrel about. The world would then turn happy and be free to concentrate on culture and character. Solely by their own intelligence and labor, men have shaped their own destiny. You see a lot of things out there that boast claims like end the stigma, okay? Ending homelessness. Okay, it's not in your reach. See, that's a pretty bold statement, because the question really is then what are you doing? Then what are you doing in order to end homelessness? Oh, well, we're taking money. Well, that's not going to end homelessness. It's not even close, right? So certainly no alcoholic and surely no member of AA wants to depreciate material achievement, nor we enter into debate with many who still so passionately cling to the belief that to satisfy our basic natural desires is the main object of life. But we are sure that no class of people in the world ever made a worse mess of trying to live by this formula than alcoholics. For thousands of years, we have been demanding more than our share of security, prestige, and romance. When we seemed to be succeeding, we drank to dream still greater dreams. When we were frustrated, even in part, we drank for oblivion. Never was there enough of what we thought we wanted. And see, what does that come down to? Well, we're not satisfied. There's that big gaping hole in our stomach that we're trying to fill with all these different things, and it needs to be filled with a higher power, with a fellowship, with a brotherhood or sisterhood or personhood, whatever we want to call it nowadays. Okay. But there was just, when it comes to certain things, I become insatiable, which means I can't get enough. Alcohol is one of those things. So In all these strivings, so many of them well-intentioned, our crippling handicap had been our lack of humility. We had lacked the perspective to see that our character building and spiritual values had to come first, and that material satisfactions were not the purpose of living. Quite characteristically, we had gone all out in confusing the ends with the means. Instead of regarding the satisfaction of the material desires as the means by which we could live and function as human beings, we had taken these satisfactions to be the final end and aim of life. And to think we have finished, to think that we have accomplished the final goal and we are still here living on earth is a little naive. It's a little naive, you know. In order for a person, just a person, right, to move forward in life, they need accomplishment. And we alcoholics need accomplishments. And what do we call that in the program? We call it progress, right? That we're making progress each day and trying to become a better person each day, which is not always easy. That's not easy to do. And that's why humility is such a big factor in it. And what really is humility? Well, it's doing things without expecting anything really in return. And we can do that. Why can we do that? Because we've been given a gift. We've been given a gift. And that gift was the release of the obsession of alcohol. Okay? And we didn't have to do much in order for that to happen. So, sorry, I'm just trying to figure out where I was. Okay. True, most of us thought good character was desirable, but obviously good character was something one needed to get on with the business of being self-satisfied. With a proper display of honesty and morality, we'd stand a better chance of getting what we really wanted. But when we had to choose between character and comfort, the character building was lost in the dust of our chase after we thought was happiness. Seldom did we look at character building as something desirable in itself, something we'd like to strive for, rather whether our instinctual needs were met or not. We never thought of making honesty, tolerance, and true love of man and God the daily basis of living. Yeah, these incessant demands. I've been hearing a lot of them lately. People not talking to other people because of demands, and those demands were not met. And I'm watching families divide and things, and that shit hurts, man. At the same time, I have to remember that it's my honesty, tolerance, and true love of man and God. All right. So I do know this. I am not everybody's cup of tea. Okay. And that's okay. It's okay. I used to wonder about those things, but everybody's got what they got going on, right? Gotta get rid of that. It's too hot. Too hot. When I don't get enough sleep, that's how I get really hot. All right. This lack of anchorage to any permanent values, this blindness to the true purpose of our lives, produced another bad result. For just so long as we were convinced that we could live exclusively by our own individual strength and intelligence, for just that long was a working faith in a higher power impossible. This was true even when we believed that God existed. We could actually have earnest religious beliefs which remained barren because we were still trying to play God ourselves. As long as we placed self-reliance first, a genuine reliance upon a higher power was out of the question. The basic ingredient of all humility, a desire to seek and do God's will, was missing. Yeah. We can believe in God but still play God. But you cannot have humility and play God. Yeah, that one you can't do. No, it won't work. In fact, haven't we kind of proven that all of our lives? That just maybe our way of thinking was a little skewed. Yeah. Maybe just a little, you know. um, and so what is that? Humility is saying, hey, my way is not working. I need a different way. Right? Now I find in my life, in the beginning of the program, I never really got what I wanted. I got what I needed, right? But now that I follow God's will, I find quite often I still get my want and that need are usually the same. And I quite often get what I want. You bet. But it's because what I want is entirely different. So what I want is to help as many people in this world before I'm out of here. That's what I want. And that's right in line with God's will. So for us, the process of gaining a new perspective was unbelievably painful. Yes, it's going to hurt. And it's not going to just hurt emotionally. No, this is a soul sickness, and it hurts from the top of your hair to your toenails on your feet. It hurts. It is an aching of the soul. Right? It was only by repeated humiliations that we were forced into to learn something about humility. So it was our gift of desperation that helped us find humility. It was only at the end of a long road marked by successive defeats and humiliations and the final crushing of our self-sufficiency that we began to feel humility as something more than a condition of groveling despair. Every newcomer in Alcoholics Anonymous is told and soon realizes for himself that his humbling admission of powerlessness over alcohol is his first step towards liberation from its paralyzing grip. So, just checking here something real quick. All right. So it is that we first see humility as a necessity. And that's in step one. And what was the humility? I can't do it. I need help. That was it. It doesn't, admitting that I'm an alcoholic, that my life is unmanageable and I need some help with it. Right? So, but this is the barest beginning to get completely away from our aversion to the idea of being humble, to gain a vision of humility as the avenue to true freedom of the human spirit. To be willing to work for humility is something to be desired for itself. Takes most of us a long, long time. A whole lifetime geared to self-centeredness cannot be in reverse all at once. Rebellion dogs are every step at first. We're rebels, man. We tend to fight things, and that's why that open-mindedness is necessary for us. Yeah. We got to stop fighting. We got to stop being the victim and creating division and doing these other things. It just causes more strife. So when we finally admitted without reservation that we were powerless over alcohol, we were apt to breathe a great sigh of relief, saying, well, thank God that's over. I'll never have to go through that again. Then we learned, offered to our consternation, that this is only the first milestone on the new road we are walking. Still goaded by sheer necessity, we reluctantly come to grips with those serious character flaws that made problem drinkers of us in the first place. Flaws which must be dealt with to prevent and retreat into alcoholism once again. We will want to be rid of some of these defects, but in some instances, this will appear to be an impossible job from which we recoil, and we cling with a passionate persistence to others which are just as disturbing to our equilibrium, because we still enjoy them too much. Hi, Patricia. Good afternoon. It's good to see you. How can we possibly summon the resolution and willingness to get rid of such overwhelming compulsions and desires? I take some talking juice here. All right. But again, we are driven on by the inescapable conclusion which we draw from AA experiences that we surely must try with the will or else fall by the wayside. At this stage of our progress, we are under heavy pressure and coercion to do the right thing. We are obliged to choose between the pains of trying and the certain penalties of failing to do so. This initial steps along the road are taken grudgingly, yet we do take them. We may still have no very high opinion of humility as a desired personal virtue, but we do recognize it as a necessary aid to our survival. Now, here again, what we're doing is we're making a beginning, just like we do with a lot of things. Okay, because you're going to have to try humility a little bit first to understand what the benefits to humility are. Okay, what are the benefits to humility? Well, it'd be balance, it'd be happiness, and those would be the dividends. And when we do it enough, then we understand that humility is kind of the way to go. It is. But when we have taken a square look at some of these defects, have discussed them with another, and have become willing to have them removed, our thinking about humility commences to have a wider meaning. By this time, in all probability, we have gained some measure of release from our more devastating handicaps. Here are the benefits. We enjoy moments in which there is something like real peace of mind. To those of us who have hitherto known only excitement, depression, or anxiety, in other words, to all of us, this newfound peace is a priceless gift. Something new indeed had been added. Where humility had formerly stood force-feeding a humble pie, it now begins to mean the nourishing agreement which can give us serenity. I like how they put in here that we had only known excitement, depression, or anxiety. Listen to those swaying emotions. I talk quite often about how excitement it levels more drinking careers than I've seen. Yeah. Because we don't know how to handle it. We always focus on the bad. Well, there are good things that can get out of control with us alcoholics also. So, this improved perception of humility starts another revolutionary change in our outlook. Our eyes began to open to an immense values which have come straight out of a painful ego puncturing. Until now, our lives have been largely devoted to running from pain and problems. We fled from them as from a plague. We never wanted to deal with the fact of suffering. Escape via the bottle was always our solution. Character building through suffering might be all right for saints, but it certainly didn't appeal to us. I don't think it's really going to appeal to anyone. Then I think that really comes, how do we get there? Well, it's that attraction, not promotion. You see somebody else, you've heard somebody else's story that was maybe a lot like yours, and then what happened is this transformation took place. Because even though you didn't say it or admit it out loud, there was somebody there that you wanted what they had. So you gave that humility a chance, right? Yeah, and good job, by the way. Then in AA, we looked and listened. Everywhere we saw failure and misery transformed by humility into priceless assets. We heard story after story of how humility had brought strength out of weakness. In every case, pain had been the price of admission into a new life. But this admission price had purchased more than we expected. It brought a measure of humility, which we soon discovered to be the healer of pain. We began to fear pain less and desired humility more than ever. Yeah. Right. Maybe, humility may even be something's going on and you just don't know why, and you got to be okay with it. Yeah. During the process of learning more about humility, the most profound result of all was the change in our attitude towards God. Not just God, but everyone around us, and God's children also. And this was true whether we had believers or unbelievers. We began to get over the idea that the higher power was sort of a Bush League pinch hitter to be called upon only in an emergency. The notion that we could still live our own lives, God helping a little now and then, began to evaporate. Many of us who had thought ourselves religious awoke to the limitations of this attitude. Refusing to place God first, we had deprived ourselves of his help. But now the words, "Of myself I am nothing, the Father doeth the work," began to carry bright promise and meaning. Yeah, I need direction. It's how I am, and it doesn't matter how long I've been in the program, good stretch. I still need it. And it's okay. I've come to rely upon it, where alcohol was my solution. Now the program of AA and my higher power are the solution. Right? And understanding that character building and humility is actually towards the way of peace and is a healer of pain, not just physical pain, but emotional, mental, and spiritual. Okay. We saw we needn't always be bludgeoned and beaten into humility. Yeah, it doesn't. That's where it starts to change. Oh man, I got to use that humility thing again. That sucks. Right? Then one day you're like, I'm just going to use humility here because it works. And there you are. Peace of mind. Peace of mind. Right? It could come quite as much from our voluntary reaching for as it would come from unremitting suffering. A great turning point in our lives came when we sought for humility as something we really wanted, rather than as something we must have. It marked the time when we could commence to see the full implication of Step 7, humbly asking him to remove our shortcomings. As we approach the actual taking of Step 7, it might be well if we AAs inquire once more just what our deeper objectives are. Each of us would like to live at peace with himself and with his fellows. We would like to be assured that the grace of God can do for us what we cannot do for ourselves. We have seen that character defects, based upon short-sighted or unworthy desires, are the obstacles that block our path towards these objectives. We now clearly see that we have been making unreasonable demands upon ourselves, upon others, and upon God. There it is, yeah. Oh. Hi, Bren. It's good to see you. It's good to see you. The chief activator of our defects has been self-centered fear. You're going to hear this a lot. Okay. Primarily fear that we would lose something we already possessed or would fail to get something we demanded. Those are the two types of fears. And you can take your character defects, your resentments, and they will lead back to one of these two fears. And you got to let them go. You got to walk through. You got to be willing to give up everything for one thing, your recovery, which is everything. All right. Living upon a basis of unsatisfied demands, we were in a state of continual disturbance and frustration. Therefore, no peace was to be had unless we could find a means of reducing these demands. The difference between a demand and a simple request is plain to anyone. This is usually, when I'm working with somebody, this is usually when I will bring in emotional sobriety. I bring in Next Frontier Emotional Sobriety, and we read that. So we can understand that these unreasonable demands that I'm putting on other people, right? Now, you're also going to have that patience, tolerance, kindness, and love, because sometimes people are going to put unreasonable demands upon you for their relationship, and you're going to fail. Well, we know what this is. It's a setup. I mean, we've spent most of our lives driving people away, and if we haven't changed and do the steps, then that's what we will continue to do. We'll just drive the people that we love out of our lives because we talk a good game, But inside, we know we don't deserve any of it because we really didn't do the work. And we know it. That honesty can be a bitch, man. It can be tough. Yes, hi, I know you want love. I know. It's fine. There you go. He's my lap cat. All right, the 7th step is where we make the change in our attitude, which permits us with humility as our guide to move out from ourselves towards others and toward God. The whole emphasis of step 7 is on humility. It is really saying to us that we now ought to be willing to try humility in seeking the removal of our other shortcomings, just as we did when we were powerless over alcohol and came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. If that degree of humility could enable us to find the grace by which such a deadly obsession could be banished, then there must be hope of the same result respecting any other problem we could possibly have. So we're just going to put the same kind of effort and humility that we did in step 1 on our character defects, right? Now, in this case, our character defects aren't something that are necessarily removed. A lot of it is. I mean, the selfishness, the self-centeredness, that stuff. Yeah. Our pride, our ego. These are character defects. See, I know we talk about character defects, and a lot of times anger comes up. Okay. Now, anger is the result of a character defect, but anger is a feeling, not necessarily a character defect. And I do it too. And we just kind of make that little shortcut there so that it makes it a little more understandable. But do know that emotions are character defects. Our emotions are what come out of the bad character defects. Let's go find them real quick before I wrap up here. So I'm going to go to the big book, of course, right? So, what are they? Well, our self-esteem, our pocketbook, our ambitions, our personal relationships, our security, our ambitions, and our sex relations. Those are character defects. So, all right. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I appreciate it. This has been step 7 of the 12 days of recovery, which is probably going to be more like 13. So probably 14. Step 12 is pretty long. So step 11. All right. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I'll return a little bit later after I have had a nap. So, all right. Thank you. I love you. You know I do.